Hi, Anisha. Thank you so much for giving up some of your day today to have a chat with me about this particular topic. I know how busy you are, and I'm sure we're going to get onto some of that in a while. But just for those that are watching, it's Global Wellbeing Week, running from the 21st to the 30th of June. And what I wanted to do was to have conversations with those that I know to learn more about the well-being in the context of their lives, and also to really bring that to the forefront of those that are watching, to get them to consider how well-being fits into their life. So Anisha, just so that others learn a little bit more about you, do you want to share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, of course. So I'd start with saying, first of all, thanks for having me. For very, very honoured to be asked about my well-being. A bit about myself. First and foremost, I'm a mum to two little girls. Naya's 8, Anya's 5. And with her husband, we've been married for nearly coming up to 15 years. I've spent probably the best part of what feels like it's coming up to 20 years, which makes me feel old, but 20 years in industry, always in technology, and I'm currently a technology director for a leading betting and gaming brand. And because I don't have enough to do with a family and a day job, I'm also currently studying part-time for my MBA, so I'm sort of a part-time student as well. And what else can I tell you about? I'm based out in Hertfordshire, which is very lucky. It's a very nice part of the country, and I work in London, so I have a fairly long-ish commute, which I guess when we get on to talking about well-being plays a big part, or certainly in terms of hours in my life.
Right, yeah. So sounds like you're Superwoman then, from what I'm hearing. So, okay, the first question really I've been asking everybody that I've been speaking to is, what does well-being mean to you? And the reason why I ask this question is because, you can Google well-being, and there's so many different variations of it. There's lots and lots of research, but really what I'm interested in is how does that word well-being translate into your life?
Yeah, I think probably like many people, I surprised myself, because I think up until very recently as just before the pandemic hit, I used to see well-being as like very kind of one or two dimensional, very much about, how much I exercise or what I eat. And actually through quite a lot of kind of development and reflection through this kind of period of time over the last 18 months or so, I've really switched focus to more, my emotional well-being and my mental well-being. And what I mean by that is sort of spending more time with myself, reflecting on what I need more holistically, to be the best that I can be. And my takeaway from that is, I think I would really urge people to think about it more as multifaceted, and that can be anything from how much sleep you get to how much water you're drinking, which sounds like physical things, all the way through to, how often are you doing the things that you really enjoy, whether that's taking a bath or taking a walk or just sitting and meditating, or doing that physical exercise that you wanted to do, because I think they all wrap up into well-being for me. And so I think for me the meaning of well-being is how can you be the best that you can be, physically, emotionally, mentally, and how do those things interact with each other?
Yeah, that really resonates what you're talking about there, Anisha, and I referenced it on another of the conversations that I've had, where many years ago, that the well-being, what I was aware of in myself was that physical exercise, the requirement, the need for me to have that physical exercise, and I didn't necessarily consider any of the other things that I was doing as well-being, because it's just what you do. And then I think as you get older, with all of the various pressures, that we have in life, we do reflect more, don't we? And so just coming on to touching on what you said there, so you were talking about over the last 12 to 18 months. So just talk to me a little bit about how your well-being has been impacted then over the last, during the course of the pandemic.
So look, I think everyone's been impacted, both probably in positive and negative ways as a part of COVID. And probably like many people sitting out there listening to this, I think the first few months as we went into our first lockdown and things like that, that hit me quite hard. We then had around homeschooling, which for all of the parents out there, I don't need to share the challenge. The many funny conversations that probably brought with it. And so I've kind of tried to, I guess, reflect on and accept both the good and the bad, right? So to give you some examples, the positives for me, and I mentioned this in the sort of intro part, is I used to spend 2 hours each way traveling into work. That's 4 hours of my day I now get back as a result of working from home. Now, of course, such is time that if you've got free time, you fill it with stuff, don't you? But I was very conscious to fill it with things that were really important. And that was everything from, trying to get some regular time in to do some physical exercise, whether that was at the gym or at home, or sometimes I'd try and do some good multitasking, as I like to call it, which is go for a walk and do that with the kids. And so I'm spending time with the kids and I'm going for a walk, because I think and then the bad was, as I said, I think homeschooling and things like that were really challenging while both me and my husband both work from home. So having everyone in the house for a prolonged period of time, and then of course much earlier this year in January of 2021, we all actually got COVID and were really quite ill from it, and really quite unwell. And so of course that had some lasting impacts, both in terms of our physical health, lasting impacts, and also impacts on the kids of us just being tired all the time and things like that. So I think there's been bad and good, and I think probably most people feel like that.
Yeah, the real mix. And when you say, I love it, the good multitasking, you will be pleased to know that actually one of the recommendations in boosting our across the board the happy hormones is if you can combine activities. So going for a walk, and because you get different boosts from those different activities. So yes, that is an excellent way of multitasking. When you speak about, I remember, when I learned that you had COVID, and you had it bad. It wasn't just some of the symptoms. It was, from what you were sharing with me, the children were excellent, bless them, having to, navigate that whole piece. But so that in itself was difficult, but those lasting impacts of COVID. So how then? I'm interested to know how did you take care of yourself, and how how did your family, your husband, take care of himself? So we have often, when we're ill, then that's it. We're ill, okay, feeling a bit better, okay, now I'm better. But it was over a period of time, wasn't it? So sometimes I think the head goes, well, I'm well, but the physical body is like, I am not doing what you need me to. So how easy did you find it to take care of yourself in that interim?
So look, I think it helps that I'm my job is pretty much sort of project and program management. So by default, I'm a fairly well organised person. It means I love making a good plan and organising my time. And I guess I have to as well, because of the various hats of being a mum and studying and various things. So I do try and compartmentalise my day somewhat where I can. And I think the thing that I've learned over the last couple of years is trying to be disciplined about doing that. So it's really easy for us if we're going to say, okay, I'm going to work from X time, time in the morning to X time in the afternoon. It's probably, anyone listening, it's probably really easy for us to bleed outside of those hours and go, I just need to do that little bit more work. But actually, when it's something that's a personal thing to you, like I need to go to the gym, or I really want to take a bath today, probably not in this heat, but I really want to take a bath today, we often find it easy to kind of, I'll do that later, or I'll do that tomorrow. And I think for me, it's been discipline that goes across everything, right? So if you're committed to doing something, whether that's for yourself or for members of your family, if you're looking after people who've got dependents, is sticking to that commitment. And I know that can be really difficult for people, because obviously if you're working from home and things, then everything tends to blur into each other. And then on a personal point of view, for me and Vinesh, we really try to split things. Like we both get quite a lot of energy from just having some time to ourselves and reflecting and maybe doing some exercise or something like that. He's very much a morning person, so he's up early. I am not, and I prefer to exercise in the evening. So we've got a bit of a schedule going where he'll go out and he'll have his swim in the morning very early before I'm even awake, and then I'll do that in the evening. And I guess the price we pay for that is we don't have maybe as much time together in the evenings after the kids have gone to bed. But we both recognise that we need that to be at our best. And so the other good thing, a funny anecdote that I thought I'd share with everyone listening was, I used to really, many years ago, I used to go to the gym. I used to just, go on a treadmill or go out onto the gym floor. Joined a new gym just before the pandemic, and the gym floor at that gym is very intimidating. We've got some really very physically fit, big people in there, and I was just terrified. So I decided that I was going to start I'm having trouble. I decided I was going to start doing some classes, and I love them. And on reflection, the reason I love classes is because I can just relinquish control. There's an instructor at the front. She's telling me what to do. I don't have to think about anything. I just follow what I'm being told to do, and I get it done. And actually that really works for me, and I'd never really thought about classes like that. So yeah, I definitely urge people to really reflect on those moments and think about, what you're getting from it, how's it making you feel, and maybe you need something different.
Yeah, and again, I know that pre the pandemic, I got enjoyment out of different things than I did during, probably because we were forced to not do the things that we were doing, but even now, and in the whole exercise thing, and that makes complete sense to me, to have somebody just follow what they say. You don't have to think. In fact, you can't think, can you? Because you don't know what they're going to say. So in that sense, it's a great way of keeping in the present moment, for mindfulness activity as well. So you're combining those. Yeah, really great. So what you mentioned a few things, but for you now, what helps you to be a well-being?
Lots of things. So I've discovered that I'm a much nicer person when I get good sleep. And so I prioritize my sleep, and I make sure I get a good 7 or 8 hours of sleep every night. I prioritize water, and I'm finding, for me personally, something like intermittent fasting, so starting to take in food and drink later in my day, and then stopping much earlier. So I try and probably just limit my intake of food and drink to sort of 7, 8 maximum 10 hours in that window. And that works really well for me in terms of my energy levels. I was finding where I was having a lot of, having a breakfast or something, I was getting much lower energy in the afternoons after lunch. So that works for me, but obviously everyone's different. And I do need a bit of time just alone, away from everyone, even if that's 20 minutes. And I try and, like you said, marry that together with some exercise, which obviously helps me work out physically, but also I'm finding that more regular exercise is also having a longer term physical impact, in that it's to suffer from a lot of back pain and things like that, and that's much better. And you can't see it at the moment, but I do have one of those standing desks which I love, and so I end up standing a bit in the mornings in my work day, and sort of tending to sit down in the afternoon, which again really just helps energy levels.
That sounds great. And as you said that you work from home, I know that you've got a large team. Is there anything in addition to that you're talking about that you pay attention to in your working day that helps you?
We've actually been doing a lot with, not just within my team, but across our business around well-being. So as an example, as a senior leader, I do a fortnightly coffee drop-in session. It's a kind of come and let's talk about anything you want to talk about. And there's been some really interesting insights and questions that have been brought up by the team about their own personal well-being. And of course, I'm very fortunate, but I also run a distributed team. So not all of my team sits in the UK, and are obviously dealing with very different things depending on what geographical location they belong to, have got different restrictions and different lifestyles. And so I'm very cognizant of that. And I guess in a way I sort of maybe benefit from understanding those different situations as well, because not everyone's sort of in the same boat around the world. In terms of sort of more broadly as well, I think it's, for me, in the role that I do, is I think more recently leading by example has been so important. So I have a number of people in my team that are parents. I've got dependents, whether that's elderly parents that they're looking after, and I built quite a reputation of my 5-year-old would sort of rumble in about 3 o'clock when she gets home from school, and that was really regular, and it all turned into a bit of a laugh and a joke. But actually the serious side of it was I was very, very conscious that I wanted to ensure that others felt comfortable, that parts of their personal life can absolutely bleed into work, and that's absolutely fine. And I think when people in my team see me as a leader demonstrate those behaviours, they almost feel like they have permission to do the same. And if that makes their day more manageable and it makes their day less pressured, then that's a good thing.
Absolutely. You really hit the nail on the head there for me in terms of leadership, that leading by example, because there's so many organisations or parts of organisations that have a the wellbeing strategy, that have the and it's spoken about, and it's spoken about the fact that people have permission to do X, Y, and Z, but people really need to see it and experience it from those that are leading them, to really feel that they have permission. I think there'll be some people that don't need that, but I think the majority of people to live and breathe it. So that's really great. So you shared kind of on a personal perspective, also on a work perspective there, and that all sounds absolutely wonderful. You've got the well-being sussed, but what gets in the way of it? Because it's reality, isn't it? And unfortunately, things change from day to day, week to week. So for you, what are the things that get in the way of you focusing in on your own well-being? And this might be external, but it also can be internal, I think. Hang on one second. Felix. Come on. So sorry. Right.
Well, firstly, I don't think I have got it sussed. I think I'm still working on it. What I would say is, first of all, I guess, Laura, you've known me for over a decade now, probably. We've worked together a lot, both personally and professionally. You've been a friend for a long time. I think if you had met me at that point in my career 10 years ago, I would have been a person that was, still who I am. I'm still an extrovert. I'm quite talkative. I'm quite energetic, but I would find myself having quite extreme, highs and lows, right? When things are really well, they're great. When things are not good, they're really, really quite horrendous. And I think what I have learned is over time, and as I've got older, I guess, is that funnily enough, my kind of hemisphere of control is actually getting smaller and smaller, and that sounds strange, I guess, being in a senior leader role at work and being a mum, but actually all of the external things in my life, whether that's the school that the kids go to, or other support mechanisms we have, whether that's the nanny or the gardener or whatever, are all things I can't control. There are a number of things I can't control, and I think along in any given day, and everyone will resonate with this, in any 24 hours there's a multitude of things that could happen that could really set you off either on a real high or on a real low. And I think what I have learned along the way and how I cope with that is, if you sort of imagine a graph, if you like, an X and Y axis with your mood on it, and you get highs and lows, you sort of roller coaster of your day. I've learned to try and squeeze those peaks and troughs into a much smaller window. And what I mean by that is trying to calibrate how I'm feeling over the course of the day, so that I'm not falling into extremes. And so, Laura, you're way more qualified than me on this, but the impact that has on us hormonally and physically. And I think what that means then is that, of course, I'm only human. Everyone has good days and bad days, but it means that when you have a bad day, for example, it doesn't throw you off so significantly that you've got your head in your hands for a week and you're still sort of trying to overcome it. I also think those kind of real extreme highs and lows can be really tiring, they can be really exhausting, and they really drain you of energy. Even highs really drain you of energy. So I think it's, if you're able to normalize that to a comfortable level for you, then it means that you're just sort of more stable and more calm. And that doesn't mean, we're all human, obviously, negative things do impact us all the time. I get just as pissed off as anyone else when I wake up in the morning ready for a good day and it's really grey and horrible outside, or it can be weather, it can be something that's happened at school, I've forgotten uniform, whatever that might be. But it's normalizing that. And I think it's also a big part of well-being is when you do have those lows and you do have those things that are outside of your control, it's just giving yourself and going, what, I can't control it all, and I'm okay with that. Or if Pat does something wrong, just going, okay, well, everyone makes mistakes. And I know that's really easy. Everyone listening is probably going, well, that's a lot easier to say than do. But it's like anything, it comes with practice, and practicing forgiving yourself, and practicing kind of saying to yourself, it's okay, tomorrow's another day, you start again, it'll be fine. And I think those are the sort of coping mechanisms that have helped me sort of overcome some of those challenges.
And I picked up on there just towards the end of that, Anisha, the practice, because I think sometimes we expect, okay, well, I'll try that tomorrow. Oh, it didn't work. Oh, it's not for me. And it, with any routine or habit, we know varying research as to how long it takes to form a habit, but the brain, again, that analogy of the brain is a muscle. It's like going to the gym. You don't go to the gym the very first time after having a break for 6 months and expect to be able to do exactly what you did. Well, actually, I think a lot of the time we do, and that's why we get injured. So I don't know whether we learn, but it's exactly the same, isn't it? It's about kind of making that commitment to yourself that this is important, and then kind of trying to progress with that. And so for you, and I guess the loved ones that you have around you, how important is that focus on well-being to you?
In terms of that impact on others, or the impact they have on me?
All of it.
So I'm very fortunate. I think I have a great support network of friends and family around me that help me to do all the things that I can able to do. And I think it's about communication as well. I think communication is really important, especially with your loved ones. So helping them to understand, why something is important for your well-being, or being much more open and honest about how you're feeling that about your well-being. If you're not in a good place, and that often can take a lot of courage to sort of kind of go, well, I'm not in a good place actually.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I think the more it's the same thing as what you've just talked about. I think the more you practice that kind of talking about it, I think the easier it becomes. We went through a period this year where having had COVID, etc., we hadn't really taken a break. Now, of course, it's very difficult to travel at the moment with various restrictions and things, and we're not particularly like staycation type people, but needs must, and we kind of like we do just need a break, and we intentionally chose somewhere where we would be totally cut off from the world, and there was no Wi-Fi and all of that good stuff, and that took some adjustment. And I think actually, interestingly, it was quite an adjustment for kids to be cut off a bit as well. And but it was great to see them go back to some really basic things, like being able to have fun playing board games and things like that. And so I would say that for me as a mum, especially, getting the girls into the habit of really thinking and reflecting and taking time to check in on how they are feeling is a really great habit to get them in. It's not something, and it's not criticism of my parents in any shape or form, but it's not something I had growing up, and I do wonder whether if I had learned some of those habits sooner, then actually they would have become much easier for me to kind of check in and go, I'm not okay today, or actually I'm having a great day and I'm feeling really energized. And so I think that kind of learning is important, and I think the more you can pass on this kind of ability to reflect to others around you, not only do they play a role in your well-being, you play a role in theirs, which is something that's really wonderful, I think, to support the people around you.
Yeah, absolutely. How wonderful is that your children are learning that, whether you call it a life skill or it's emotional intelligence,
It is.
that you're teaching them, and the importance of that, because how do we know if we don't know how we are? So and it's funny because it's not something that's really natural to us these days, because we are just so busy and immersed in our worlds. And actually, if you go back to a lot of sort of ancient mythology, and you go back to meditation, I come from Indian culture, and you go back to yoga and meditation and those sorts of things, and they're really deep rooted in that kind of self-reflection and really checking with yourselves, depending on whatever language you want to use. And so at 8 and 5, my two girls are probably a bit too young and too they got too many ants in their pants to maybe sit still and meditate, but just a simple question of how was your day, and if they talk about something that wasn't particularly nice, how did that make you feel? And I think some of those sort of probing questions can really help them reflect, and often it's interesting because from kids you get a I don't know, and you get that from adults too. I don't know how I felt. I'm like, oh, okay, we'll just sit with that for a second and work out how you felt about that, and just coaching them through it, I think is really helpful. So I could carry on for a very long time, but we're not going to. So to end our conversation, I'm just wondering whether there's, it might have been something that you've already said, or it might be something completely different. If you had to share one tip or piece of advice to somebody that's wanting to focus on their well-being, or something that you just couldn't do without, what might that be?
That's tough. I would say work out how to spend time with yourself. And what I mean by that is, and it doesn't have to be long. I think sometimes people think, oh, you need 20 minutes. You really don't. It can be as quick as 30 seconds or a minute, 3 or 4 times a day. I've got one of these iWatches. They're fantastic for that, because they set alarms off to make you breathe, and you can use that time, which is about a minute long, to just sit and go, how am I feeling, and really reflect. And I think the more you get into the habit of doing that, you'll find that you learn an immense amount about yourself that you didn't really even think that you knew, and I think that's a really good road to getting you onto thinking about all of the other facets of well-being, to help you be your best.
Love it. So tuning in, and finding a way to almost bring it into the consciousness for you to be able to do that, because we're often stuck in autopilot, aren't we? So having that watch where you've got a bit like the instructor in the class, you've got something signaling to you, right, you need to do that, and then you go in.
Yeah, I think so.
Lovely. Thank you so much for all of your shares there, Anisha. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you. Thanks, it's been great.
Take care.